Welcome to The Read Along,
a mini book club for your ears.
I'm your host, Scott.
I'm your other host, Anita.
And join us on a journey through a good book,
one chapter at a time.
Do you like talking about movies? Do you like talking about mediocre movies? Do you like talking about how you could have fixed mediocre movies? Well, I certainly do, and you can listen to me, Scott C. Bourgeois, along with my co-hosts Greg Beaver and Liam Creswick, as we give our notes, and I have some notes. You can follow it now on your podcatcher of choice or support it by visiting patreon.com/IHaveSomeNotes. We're in the pre-New Year recording at this point.
And the post-New Year releasing.
Yeah, so Happy New Year.
Yay!
When you hear this, it will be 2025.
Hello from the past.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on some of this holiday weirdness last episode as well.
Yeah, well, because we're still in it.
Yeah, because we're recording before the holiday again,
Mm-hmm.
and this will be released after the holiday
Again.
So you are hearing us from the past, from a whole year before.
Well, from a certain point of view.
Yes, you are hearing us in 2025.
Yes.
Or potentially later, if you're picking this book up much later.
I was going to blame this on Christmas falling in the middle of the week this year, but that kind of doesn't matter, does it?
Not usually. That's where we're at. We're also nearly at the end of this book.
So close.
Yeah, we're one conclusion away.
Yes.
And
epilogue, if you will.
Yeah, and I'll admit this final proper chapter did not go the way I expected it was going to go.
Me neither.
But maybe a way I should have known it was going to go based on the tarot card. But maybe we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, and we should start with a little recap of our previous chapter.
I am getting ahead of nothing. And yes, we should absolutely do our recap.
That would be chapter 12, the hanged man of our novel, in which 13 finally gets some answers.
Yeah, and meets the real Lulabelle.
The real Lulabelle, the original human person who is on death's door in the hospital. And this makes all of the puzzle pieces finally fit together, for the most part.
Not all
Satisfactorily.
Yeah, fair. It does answer a bunch of questions.
Yeah, and 13 decides that it's time to go and kill
Lulabelle.
The Lulabelle who set her off on this journey, the Lulabelle on the hill. And so she gathers up the artist, and that's where they go at the beginning of Chapter 13, Death, of 13 Ways to Kill Lulabelle Rock by Maud Woolf. And so we finally come to the 13th card, the 13th chapter, the Death card.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that you might not know, not steeped as you are in the occult knowledge of the tarot.
It's true.
The Death card is not about finality.
No.
That's actually more associated with the Tower card, which does not feature in this book and does get name dropped in this particular chapter.
I think I did know that,
yeah, because
actually.
The Tower is about ruin. It's about destruction. It's about the death of the person, the ruination of the thing. The Death card is more about transformation. It's about leaving behind your old self and becoming a new self.
I wouldn't have come to that immediately, but now that you've said that, I think I have indeed heard that before.
Yeah, and that's kind of what happens in this chapter. This chapter ultimately doesn't end with the original actor Lulabelle dead on the floor.
Nope.
Instead, it kind of gets derailed by the artist of all people. And she makes a plea, and I mean, this might be getting a little ahead of us in the plot synopsis, but she kind of makes a plea that maybe they don't need to do that. Maybe they can just walk away into the sunset. Maybe this is their opportunity to change themselves and transform into new people, to die and be reborn after a fashion.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. Okay, but let's go back to the beginning of the chapter, because I do want to talk about this, how 13 has decided all by herself that the artist should be the last Lulabelle standing.
Yeah, they're on their way to the villa.
Yes.
And 13 kind of lays out the last parts of the plan. And
Such as it is.
Yeah, and makes it clear that really, at the end of the day, there can only be one Lulabelle left standing in order for everything to kind of like neatly square itself up. And it shouldn't be the actress because she's the worst. It should be the artist because 13
she's the best.
yeah, makes the plea that she's the best of them. She's the kindest, she's the most thoughtful, she's the Hierophant.
Yeah.
And therefore she of all of them deserves the chance to be the new Lulabelle. But that does bring up 2 points, and the artist kind of touches on both of them. One is that means that 13 also needs to die. And 13's kind of resolved to that at this point. 13's like, I always knew it would end with me dead. Like, I saw the brunch clone at the beginning of this and how she was just bereft of purpose, sitting there with nothing, and kind of embraced death at that point. Like, without our purpose, what are we? And when I've killed the last Lulabelle, what am I except just the next Lulabelle to die? So I'll be dead, the actress will be dead, the real Lulabelle will be dead shortly, and then you'll be the last one, and you deserve to be the last one. The other thing that this also presupposes is that the artist wants to be the new Lulabelle.
Which she doesn't.
Kind of emphatically doesn't.
I don't think anyway.
She kind of very clearly says she does not want to be Lulabelle. She wants to be herself. I think she suggests maybe she'll be a Cindy or something. And kind of like demands at this point that 13 pull over. Doing a terrible job at driving because she's
terrifying,
lost in trying to explain everything to the artist.
There's a whole lot of this whole conversation that they have is interspersed with watch the road.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I think at one point they motor past the magician who's looking to hitch a ride out of town.
Yeah, and she just
And that's funny because it does bring back up the tarot as well, because 13's like, look, we're at the 13th clone. 13 clones need to die. 13 portraits need to go. I'm the 13th one. Because that's what the tarot dictates, because she's fixated on this pattern.
Yeah, it's weird.
And the artist is like, but what about the other arcana cards, like the Tower, like the
Devil?
Devil?
There are a lot of cards in a tarot deck that are not these 13 cards. What about them?
Yeah, they don't fit your pattern. And that actually causes 13 to spiral for a minute.
Oh, yeah, she breaks a moment. 13 came up with a plot similar to one that I had come up with. And she refers to that Lulabelle as the firstborn. We've been calling her the actress.
Yeah.
Or Lulabelle Prime, if you will.
But she was definitely the first one. And it's also full-on confirmed here.
Yes.
And she's also the one the Viking was assigned to.
Yes, which fits with his story about having a handler. Yep, it all tracks.
And it's actually funny because at one point 13 does call him the Viking to the artist. And the artist is legitimately like, I have no idea who you're talking about.
So anyway, 13 comes up with a similar plot to one that I had done, which was that the firstborn wants to be the only Lulabelle, right? Yeah. And has set about to kill all of them, even the human one, so that she can be Lulabelle, because it has to be her. Now, there are a couple of loopholes.
Yeah, in that. I mean, the artist even points out there are a few holes in this plan.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, when the real Lulabelle dies, the rest of the portraits will be decommissioned.
Yeah, mitosis will go around decommissioning all of them. That's the law.
Yeah. Or, I don't know how portraits work. Is there like a central off switch where they just, when they all just drop? Like battle droids? Like,
and does it figure into their tracking devices?
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe not.
Hard to say.
I don't know.
Well, and the way that 13 kind of pitches it is that the original Lulabelle was thrown into the mix with the binder in the hopes that in the chaos she would also get murdered.
Well, yeah, she had a specific page in the binder for 13 to come and kill her. The artist removed it, which points more to the firstborn Lulabelle being the mastermind of this, right?
For sure.
But it occurs to me that even though the human Lulabelle is in the hospital under her real name, I was pondering it, and there is a worldview that I can see where the firstborn is so focused on what she wants and so delusional about how the world works around them that she thinks that
she can get away with murder.
Well, no, that she thinks that the human dying under her own name won't affect her as Lulabelle?
That because she's under Prudence Craig's, somehow it'll make mitosis slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that they've made another portrait named Prudence Craigs.
Yes. So that's what I mean.
She also might just be banking on Spencer and mitosis not decommissioning her because Lulabelle is too big to fail. Because she's the modern Marilyn Monroe. She's a whole industry. And so she's just trusting that Spencer will pull strings and mitosis will be bribed and everything will be as it was before.
Yeah. It seems like she's convinced it will work, even though
there are a lot of
problems with her plan.
Well, and 13 also points out, like, she was clearly using the media around the release of her terrible movie to hide the chaos of this plan.
Yes. So it was, in fact, I think 13 is right here, that it was, in fact, the other way around.
Yeah.
That the movie was, in fact, the diversion to put this messy plan into place.
Yeah, to be the last Lulabelle standing. And thus kind of lock down the keys to the kingdom, as it were.
Yeah. I was clearly getting very poetic when I was writing my notes, because I have this pretty eloquent for me sentence about Spencer in here. I'm gonna read it. This is what I wrote to myself. Spencer seems to be in the same boat, clinging to Lulabelle as this precious commodity, an eternal golden goose if he could only convince her to accept the cage of immortality.
Yeah, that's actually a very good way to put it. And that's why when he answered the phone asking, have you found her?
Right.
Is because he was hoping that 13 would track down the real Lulabelle so that he can extract more DNA.
Yes.
As we find out in this chapter, you can still extract DNA from a sick person. That's fine. It's just that the DNA extraction process is quite
extensive.
An ordeal.
Yeah.
And the real Lulabelle is infirm enough that she may not survive the procedure.
Also, they made a comment earlier about, like, healthy samples from Lulabelle. If they took one from her now, would she create sick portraits?
Hard to say. But that might be a risk that Spencer's willing to take, right?
Maybe.
Because to preserve the golden goose, right?
So, hold on. Is Lulabelle Spencer's only client? Or simply his biggest one?
Hard to say. Could be that he's just in the Lulabelle business.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't know. I didn't go back to look and see, but I don't remember them mentioning anybody else.
Well, apparently before the actress put her plan into play, the few early Lulabelles, and from the sounds of it, the Viking, decided to obfuscate where Lulabelle was by activating several of the other clones. So like the Jet Setter, the Party Girl, the Clothes Horse might all have been activated as a smokescreen so that they could shuttle Lulabelle away to the hospital.
So they could hide the real Lulabelle and Spencer wouldn't know.
So that Spencer wouldn't be able to get to her. But now the actress has some sort of delusion of grandeur and has decided that all the other Lulabelles need to go so that she can possess the Lulabelle identity.
Here's the thing. Based on all the Lulabelles we've met, it doesn't surprise me that the firstborn would have some manner of delusions of grandeur.
Or at the very least, some feeling of propriety over the Lulabelle identity.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point, it's possible she's been Lulabelle longer than Lulabelle.
Maybe.
We don't know.
We have no idea how long she's been the quote-unquote real Lulabelle, right? It's all very sticky, very messy.
Indeed. But the plan that 13 sets into motion, as mentioned, does not come to pass.
No.
Because the artist is like, look, we need to stop. We don't need to do this. And then kind of figuratively kills 13.
Okay, I'm glad we got to this scene because at the risk of getting too book clubby, I do want to talk about it. Because my brain is desperately grasping for a literal reason for why, like a literal in-world reason for why that happened the way it did. And not just the crazy metaphor and like meaning behind it. I want, why did that work? Why did putting a finger gun to 13's head and saying bang trigger that rush of sensation and emotion? My brain is grasping for an in-world reason to justify why it happened. It was a cool scene to read, but I don't understand it.
Because I kind of read it as just 13 being trusting of the artist. And the artist is like, bang, you're dead. And 13's just like, okay, then I am.
But she had this insane rush of shared memories and sensations and emotions and...
Well...
What?
And then there's something reciprocal that happens when she does it back to the artist, too. Almost like a little spark passes between them. And so maybe it is just something to do with them being portraits. Some residual programming or something.
Maybe?
Whatever it is, it does kind of trigger a transformation.
Yes. And I'm glad it does. And I
Yeah.
realize why it happened, and I, on some level, understand what it means. It's just, what?
The artist is making a pitch for freedom here. She's saying we don't have to be who we were made to be.
That's exactly what I wrote down in my notes.
We can be who we choose to be, and I choose to be with you. I don't want to be Lulabelle. I don't want to lose you.
No, she wants, 13 wants her to continue to be the artist. And the artist, I think, just wants to be with 13.
Yeah.
I like that. I do appreciate the transformation that came from that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's this strange sense of freedom all of a sudden.
Yeah, and she even says, well, how long do we know that will be? Mitosis might come after us. Lulabelle might come after us. And the artist is like, it could be days. It could be
Never.
Decades. It could be never. We'll just make the most of the time that we have together. And that will make it special. And that will make it wonderful.
Yeah. And that was nice.
And 13 is legitimately kind of scared of this proposition and is like, but the world seems so big and I like having my little thing that I can focus on. And the artist does this wonderful little thing where with her fingers, and she kind of
she
like
does that postcarding of something.
Yeah, and is like, is it really that big?
Framing.
Look at it from my perspective. And 13 does, and is like, oh, well, maybe it's not so big and scary after all.
Yeah. See, and that I can justify in world as well, because 13 was given a very specific purpose, and she feels that that is her whole point of being, and to not have that makes her feel very lost. So
and
I
overwhelmed
understand
in a very big and scary
Yeah, exactly.
world. Yeah.
So I understand the emotion she's having around this. I'm making a lot of gestures that no one can see. I'm talking a lot with my hands tonight.
But yeah, that takes us to the end of the chapter, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We are pages. Like, 2, 3, 4 pages from the very end of this book, and I still don't know if Lulabelle lives or dies.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Lulabelle, the original Prudence Craigs, is going to die.
Yes, but
And
I don't know if
probably
she's going to
sooner
do
than
it by
later.
the time we get to the end of this book.
Well, I guess we're going to wait and see. It looks like maybe the final murders aren't going to happen.
Maybe?
Because it looks like maybe the artist made a convincing argument.
Oh.
I guess we'll find out in the conclusion.
Yeah.
Or maybe the conclusion is 13 kicking in the door and gunning down
Lulabelle.
the actress.
Maybe.
Who's
Who
to
knows?
say? Maybe we'll find out as soon as next week as we read the epilogue, Temperance, which is the next chapter, the final chapter, the ultimate chapter of our novel.
Yes.
That means that we'll be doing that episode. We'll be trying not to get fully philosophical about the entire book.
I'll try.
Because that will be saved for the following episode,
Yes.
which will be our full final analysis of this. I'm going to go out on a limb and say wonderful book.
I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. Then, in that final analysis episode, we will reveal what our next novel will be. So we should probably go and choose that.
Yeah, we don't even know. It's a surprise to everyone right now.
Indeed. So yeah, read up on the epilogue in time for next week. In the meantime, of course, as always, you can give us a little rating and a review.
Because we always appreciate those.
We sure do. We also appreciate hearing from you on social media.
Oh, yeah. Pick your poison. We are on Instagram, Facebook, Blue Sky, Goodreads, and I think that's it.
Yeah,
I
that's
say the list so often, it's just muscle memory at this point. I'll make sure I got them all. We are at the read along on most of them.
We are also thereadalong@gmail.com if you want to send us an email.
Oh, we would love to get an email. We like
Indeed.
getting email.
Sure. And
I mean,
also,
sure.
I'm agreeing with you. Sure. That wasn't a sarcastic sure.
Okay, good.
But with that said, as always, we love you very much, and we'll see you next time.
We're almost done.
Thank you for joining us on The Read Along with your hosts, Anita and Scott Bourgeois. All Read Along music is by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. Cover art is by Aaron Beaver. Be sure to join us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at The Read Along, and check out our group on Goodreads.com.